It was a rainy evening in a small countryside town, the kind of rain that makes everything quiet, except the heart. Inside a dimly lit house, an old woman sat by the window, holding a trembling pen and a crumpled piece of paper. Her name was Mary Collins. She had spent years living in silence after the day her husband Daniel was taken from her. Shot dead in a robbery gone wrong. People in town had long stopped asking her how she was doing. They knew her answer would always be the same. I'm fine. But that night, as thunder rolled in the distance and the candlelight flickered over her wrinkled hands, Mary decided to write something she'd never dared before. A letter to the man who killed her husband. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from years of holding back words that needed to be said. "Dear Thomas," she began, her voice trembling as she spoke the name she'd hated for so long. "I've imagined this letter 1,000 times in my head, but every time, my anger would stop me. Tonight I'm not writing out of hate. I'm writing because silence has become heavier than grief." The ink bled slightly on the old paper as her tears mixed with it. She remembered Daniel's laugh, his scent of pine and tobacco, the way he'd hold her hand even when they walked through crowded places. "You took away a man who never hurt anyone. You took away my peace, my mornings, my reason to smile," she wrote. Her voice was steady now, almost calm. "But what hurts me most is not that you killed him. It's that I never got to know why." Outside, the rain grew louder, drumming on the roof like impatient fingers. In that sound, she could almost hear Daniel's voice whispering her name. "Was it worth it, Thomas?" she continued, her handwriting tightening. "Did the money fill the emptiness inside you, or did it burn through your hands like the guilt you tried to hide?" The letter wasn't meant to reach him. At least, that's what she told herself. He was serving a life sentence 2 towns over, forgotten by most. But to Mary, he was still alive in her nightmares. She folded the paper once, twice, as if sealing away a piece of her heart. But before she could stop, she began to write again. "I want you to know what that night did to me," she said. "After Daniel died, I stopped sleeping in our bed. I couldn't bear the emptiness beside me. The house became too quiet, the kind of quiet that screams at you. I would wake up to the sound of your gunshot echoing in my head, every single night." Her tears smeared the ink, but she didn't wipe them. "You may think you killed just one man, but you killed me too. Just slower." She paused, the candle almost dying beside her. For a moment she felt her chest tighten. "I wanted to hate you forever," she whispered. "But hate, it doesn't bring peace. It only keeps you chained to the same night, over and over again." She looked outside the window, where lightning flashed and the fields glowed white for a moment. In that instant, she saw Daniel's face. Not in pain, but smiling the way he used to when he came home from work. She closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. "I've carried this hatred for too long," she continued in her letter. "It's strange. The older I get, the more I realize hate doesn't punish the guilty. It only poisons the one who holds it." She stopped writing for a second, as if hearing her own truth for the first time. Then she whispered, "I'm tired, Thomas. So tired of hating you." She folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and on it wrote the name that once filled her with rage. Thomas Reed. Cell 42. For a long time she stared at the envelope, unsure if she'd ever send it. Maybe this letter was meant just for her, a final way to say goodbye. But deep down, something told her it needed to reach him. That he needed to hear her words, to feel her pain, to know she was still human enough to forgive. As she placed the letter on the table, another thought crept into her mind, sharp and cold. What if Thomas never regretted what he did? What if he had forgotten Daniel's face entirely? The rain kept falling outside, but inside, Mary's heart beat faster. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this letter might change everything, or what if it already had? The next morning, the sky was pale and gray, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. Mary stood by her mailbox, holding the envelope close to her chest like it carried a piece of her soul. The postman, a kind young man named Eli, smiled at her as he passed by. "Morning, Mrs. Collins. Sending something important?" he asked casually. Mary hesitated, her lips trembling. "Yes," she whispered. "Something I should have sent a long time ago." As Eli drove off, she watched the mail truck disappear into the foggy road. For the first time in years, she felt a strange lightness in her chest, like a window had finally opened inside her heart. But what Mary didn't know was that the letter she mailed that day would find its way into a prison cell that hadn't known warmth or mercy in over a decade. At Greenville Correctional Facility, Thomas Reed sat on the edge of his narrow bed, staring blankly at the wall. It had been 14 years since the robbery that changed everything. He had entered that store for a quick score, scared, high, and desperate. But when the old man behind the counter, Daniel Collins, reached for the alarm, Thomas panicked. The gun went off. One bullet, 1 second, one moment that rewrote 2 lives forever. Since that day, Thomas had tried to bury the memory under layers of silence, but it always came back. In dreams, in nightmares, in the quiet moments when he could hear his own breathing echo against the cell walls. When the guard slipped Mary's letter through the bars that afternoon, Thomas didn't open it right away. He turned it over in his rough hands, tracing his name written in shaky cursive. He didn't get letters anymore. Not from family. Not from anyone. Slowly, he tore it open. The scent of rain and old paper filled the air, and as he began to read, the noise of the prison faded away. Dear Thomas. His eyes moved slowly over every word, every sentence that felt like a wound reopening. He read about her loneliness, her pain, her sleepless nights, and for the first time in years, he felt something he thought had died inside him. Shame. Halfway through the letter, he stopped. His hands were shaking. "She remembers everything," he whispered. The cell felt smaller, the air thicker. His cellmate looked over but said nothing. Everyone in there knew when to stay quiet. Thomas pressed the paper against his forehead and closed his eyes. Memories came rushing back, the sound of the gunshot, the look on Daniel's face, the scream from outside the store. He had replayed that moment 1,000,000 times, but never through the eyes of the person he had hurt most. That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. He read the letter again under the dim light, tracing her words with his finger. "I'm tired of hating you," she had written. Those words hit him harder than the gun's recoil ever did. No one had ever said that to him before. Forgiveness. It was something he didn't think he deserved, something he didn't even know how to accept. But it was there, written in her trembling handwriting, real and alive. He folded the letter neatly, placing it under his pillow like a prayer he didn't know how to say. The next day, Thomas asked the prison chaplain for a pen and paper. It had been years since he'd written anything. His fingers were stiff, his words clumsy. But he began anyway. "Dear Mrs. Collins," he wrote slowly, "I received your letter. I don't know what made you write to me, but I've read your words 100 times already. You don't owe me forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I've spent every day trying to forget what I did. But your letter made me realize I shouldn't forget. I should remember. Because that's the only way I'll ever feel the weight of what I took from you." He paused, biting the end of his pen. "I wish I could tell you why I did it," he continued. "But there's no excuse that can make it right. I was young, angry, and full of hate. I thought the world had taken everything from me. So I took from it. I see now that I was wrong. I see now that I took the one person who gave your life meaning. I can't change that. But I want to change what's left of me." The words came out rough, uneven. He didn't know what to say next, so he ended it simply. "Thank you for writing to me. You have no idea what your words have done." Weeks passed before Mary received his reply. When she saw the envelope marked Greenville Correctional Facility, her heart skipped. She sat by the window again, just like the night she'd written hers, and carefully opened it. His handwriting was uneven, almost childlike, but every word felt raw and real. As she read his confession, she felt a strange warmth, like something inside her was finally healing. For years, she had thought closure meant forgetting. But now she realized, closure sometimes means remembering. Together. As the evening sun dipped behind the hills, Mary folded Thomas's letter and placed it beside Daniel's old photograph. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because she had learned to live with it. But as she sat there, one question echoed quietly in her mind, almost hauntingly. Could forgiveness really set them both free? Or was it just another kind of prison waiting to be built? Days turned into weeks, and Mary found herself thinking about Thomas more often than she expected. Not with anger, not with pity, but with something far more complicated, a quiet curiosity. She had imagined him as a monster for so many years, a faceless man defined by the sound of a gunshot. But now, he was human. Broken, guilty, lost, yet somehow trying. She began to reread his letter every morning, as if searching for hidden meaning between the lines. "You have no idea what your words have done," he had written. What had they done? What did he feel now, sitting behind those cold iron bars? One afternoon, as sunlight spilled softly through her window, she took out another blank page. Her fingers hesitated above the pen for a long time before she began to write again. "Thomas, I didn't expect you to write back. I didn't even expect you to read my letter. But your words, your honesty, surprised me. Maybe this is strange to say, but I believe you. I believe that you regret what you did. And I think maybe that's where healing begins." That letter turned into another, and then another. What began as a cry of grief became an unexpected conversation between two people connected by tragedy. Through their words, they began to rebuild something neither of them thought possible: understanding. Thomas wrote about his time in prison, about the guilt that haunted him each night. He told her about the therapy group he'd joined, about how he was learning to read again, how he'd started drawing because it helped him stay calm. Mary responded by sharing small pieces of her life: the flowers she planted in her garden, the stray cat that refused to leave her porch, the new recipes she tried to fill the silence in her kitchen. Their letters became a strange kind of lifeline, fragile but real. Months passed. For the first time in years, Mary's neighbors noticed her smiling again. She still walked to the cemetery every Sunday, still placed fresh flowers on Daniel's grave. But now she whispered something new when she stood there. "I'm learning to forgive." And somehow, in the quiet air of that place, she felt as if Daniel was listening. But deep inside, one question began to grow. Could forgiveness exist without meeting the person face to face? Could she look into the eyes of the man who destroyed her life and still feel the same peace she wrote about in her letters? One cold morning, as the first snow began to fall, Mary received a letter unlike the others. The handwriting was different, neater, steadier. "Mrs. Collins," it began, "I've been approved for the prison rehabilitation program. It allows a few of us to meet with the families of our victims, only if they agree. I understand if you can't. But I needed to ask." She read the letter again and again, her hands trembling. For hours, she sat staring at the paper, torn between fear and something she couldn't name. She'd spent years building walls around her pain, and now she had the chance to walk right through them. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, with shaky hands, she wrote just 3 words in reply: "Yes, I will." The day of the meeting arrived faster than she expected. She wore a simple blue dress, the one Daniel had always liked, and carried nothing but her small purse. The drive to the prison was long, quiet, filled with flashes of old memories that came and went like ghosts on the roadside. When she reached Greenville, the guard at the entrance took her ID and guided her through a series of heavy doors. The sound of metal locking behind her echoed deep inside her chest. "Are you sure you're ready, ma'am?" the guard asked softly. Mary nodded, though her legs felt weak. "I've been waiting for this for 14 years, she said. They led her into a small gray room with a metal table in the center. She sat down, her heart pounding in her chest. Minutes later, the door opened. Thomas walked in, wearing a plain prison uniform, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked older than she expected, his hair graying, his face marked with lines of regret. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stared, the weight of years hanging in the silence between them. Finally, Thomas took a shaky breath and said, "Mrs. Collins, I I don't even know where to start. Mary's eyes softened. Start by sitting down, she said quietly. He obeyed, lowering himself into the chair across from her. I've imagined this moment so many times, she continued, her voice trembling but steady. I thought I'd scream at you. I thought I'd tell you what you took from me. But now that you're here, I just see a man, not a monster. A man who made a choice, a terrible one, but still a man. Thomas swallowed hard, tears glistening in his eyes. I've replayed that night every day, he said. I was young, stupid, and full of anger I didn't understand. I thought the world owed me something. But I was wrong. It owed me nothing. And I took everything from you. He looked down, unable to meet her gaze. If I could trade my life for his, I would. I swear it. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, Mary reached across the table and placed her trembling hand over his. The guard at the door shifted uneasily but said nothing. Thomas, she said softly, I can't bring Daniel back. And I can't erase what you did. But I can choose what I do with what's left of my life. I choose not to hate you anymore. Her words broke something open inside him. Tears ran down his face as he whispered, Why? After everything I did? She looked at him, her own eyes wet. Because hate is heavy, she said, and I'm tired of carrying it. The room fell silent except for the sound of quiet sobbing. For the first time in 14 years, both of them wept, not as enemies, but as two souls scarred by the same tragedy. When the meeting ended, Mary stood up slowly, her heart strangely light. As the guard escorted Thomas away, he turned back one last time. Thank you, he whispered. And for the first time, Mary believed him. As she stepped outside the prison, the air felt different, colder, sharper, but clean. Snowflakes melted on her cheeks, and for a moment she thought she felt Daniel's presence beside her, gentle and warm. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about setting the other person free. Maybe it was about freeing yourself. As she looked up at the pale winter sky, she whispered, Rest now, my love. I'm finally at peace. But somewhere, deep down, another thought flickered. What if forgiveness wasn't the end of their story, but the beginning of something neither of them expected?